Many North Carolinians, of course, still dealing with the last one. Remember the pictures? Nearly 2 years after Hurricane Helene devastated western North Carolina, some families still rebuilding, communities still repairing roads and infrastructure, and state leaders still waiting on billions in federal reimbursements. That's why new reporting from CNN is drawing attention as hurricane season now begins. In an exclusive report published this weekend, CNN says FEMA enters hurricane season after a year of leadership shakeups, staffing losses, and delays in getting some disaster funding out the door.
CNN reports those issues grew during the tenure of former Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who was removed from her position earlier this year. The report says some current and former FEMA officials worry the agency is still trying to recover from the disruption as the threat of tropical weather ramps up. And the report says the concerns aren't limited to FEMA. Some meteorologists are also questioning whether the National Weather Service has enough staff in place after workforce reductions over the past year.
They are not able to do the routine but very important jobs that allow for us to properly forecast and warn for impactful weather, like hurricanes.
But tonight, the National Weather Service is disputing those concerns. In a statement provided to our Washington bureau, the agency said in part the entire National Weather Service, including the National Hurricane Center, is ready for hurricane season ahead. Our staffing levels continue to support our mission, and we continue to hire. Questions also being raised, though, about what disaster recovery could look like after the next major storm. A White House review panel is considering changes that could shift more responsibility for disaster response and recovery to individual states. Critics worry that could make rebuilding after a major disaster more difficult.
The committee is suggesting that pushing the disaster response and the resources needed to rebuild down to states is the solution, and it's just not going to be. It's going to shorten the ability to rebuild quickly.
The Department of Homeland Security, which oversees FEMA, says the agency is prepared. Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin, who took over after Kristi Noem's departure earlier this year, recently visited western North Carolina and says FEMA should support states, not replace them.
At FEMA, as I said, we shouldn't be the first ones in and the last ones out. The state is much more equipped. Neighbors are much more equipped. Local mayors are much more equipped. Emergency response from the states are much better equipped than FEMA, but we can be there to get them past the first heavy lift to let them start rebuilding, and then we can just be, hopefully the way I see it is that we can help fund the recovery after that.
CNN's reporting also highlights frustrations over disaster funding delays, including recovery dollars tied to Hurricane Helene.
And those concerns have also been echoed by North Carolina leaders, Republican and Democrat. In March, Governor Josh Stein proposed nearly $800 million in additional Helene recovery funding, saying western North Carolina could not afford to wait on a slow federal reimbursement process. Now, as hurricane season gets underway, the question for many North Carolinians is a very simple one.
Yeah, if another major storm hits this year, will the federal disaster response system be ready to help communities recover?